let's go. And I'm crying, like I'm just, the tears are running down my face. I'm on my knees and I'm just looking for a reason. Please give me a reason. Please, God, give me a reason. And I think it was the first time in years that I mentioned the word God in any sentence. But there was a point after that. And I don't know why it happened. I pulled the gun out of my mouth and I hold the gun in my hand. And I remember just looking at it. And there was just this pause, this clarity. And you start thinking, oh my God, what did I just do?
Kevin, so glad that you would just join us so we could share your story. And you know, when I look at you, I feel like I've had a front row seat to a redemption story. And the thing that kind of keeps coming to my mind is everyone knows Romans 8:28. All things work together for good to those that love God. And for you, man, I'm like, I don't know how what you walk through, how anything good could come out of it. And yet, man, as I look at your life, man, I'm just watching it unfold. And God's true to His word. So, man, I would love for you to share your story and how you came to know Jesus.
You know, you brought Jesus back into my life when there was a time where He just totally left. I felt abandoned. I felt lost. Because as a child, you know, even the way I grew up was wasn't sunshine and rainbows. I grew up in kind of a jacked up household with all sorts of different abuse issues going on there. But I was always really tied into my faith. I was always a churchgoer. I was raised Lutheran. But after a while, it became very rote and very mechanical, and it was more like superstition than anything else. By the time I went to college, and I entered into college for theological studies, because I thought, well, you know what? I can make a change in the church. I can bring a little bit more life. I wasn't raised Catholic, but I attended a Catholic high school. I always saw Jesus as more like my buddy, my friend. You know, I had that communal relationship with Him. There was a statue over the principal's office, you know, Jesus on the cross like this. Well, I used to go up and I'd say, hey, J-Man, give him a high five. Boy, that didn't go over really well. They didn't appreciate that one, but it was my familiar relationship with Jesus at that time, and that's how I felt. But as much as I tried to build that relationship, it just kept getting pushed away. Like I would get in trouble. I would get Saturday detention for giving Jesus the high five. And then I had this class by a guy named Dr. John Becker, who was a retired Jesuit priest, or he left the priesthood. And we started reading the Bible as literature. And I started looking at the Bible rather than the parable that it is, to the real meat and potatoes of a really vicious story. Because some of those stories in the Bible are really rough. And I can remember the time that I actually lost my faith, because it's funny, coming full circle, it's kind of what brought me back to my faith. I believe it's Samuel 1, where Saul is trying to get David killed. And he sends him out to go slay the Philistines. And he says, you have to bring me 100 Philistine foreskins. And I'm reading this in college. And I'm like, well, he's not going to just take the foreskin. It's the whole shebang. And David comes back in the square. He's got 1,000. And I was like, wow, there's something not right here. And it was at that moment that I felt lost and I felt abandoned. I'm like, this is not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
So I just left my faith behind.
So you go to college and you actually, rather than your faith growing, man, you wind up losing your faith out of college. You're going for theological studies.
I went to college and totally lost my faith.
Wow.
You know, so here I am, this 18-year-old kid out on their own for the first time, and I have no moral compass, so I'm out on my own. And it seems very tragic, but here's the part that really I want to drive home. I had to lose my faith in order to bring it back so strong as it is now.
Yeah.
And I went on a 30-year tear of doing about every wrong thing you possibly can do.
Yeah.
You know, you name it, I did it.
Yeah.
And it was a hard life.
Man. I always joke, God's like, man, if you ever seen that show Chopped, where He takes, man, we just make a mess of our life, and somehow, man, after a little bit, He makes all our mess, and all of a sudden it makes this beautiful message, man. So you lose your faith, and now you're trying to figure out, all right, who am I as a young man or whatever? What goes on after that?
Well, you talk a lot about primary identity. I think you might have taken it from C.S. Lewis, and I think I've co-opted it from you.
Yeah.
So primary identity should be something that is unshakable. It's a lesson that you taught in church that I will never, ever forget. And it's been such a pivotal point in my life where Throughout my life, I've always tried to put my identity in these different things that have a beginning and an end. I thought my identity for a long time is when I finally got the job as a police officer, I found it. I got it. Here it is. And this is it. And one day that ends. The job itself wasn't the worst part. There was a victim inside. We saved the victim. She gets out. But there was a point in that shooting where I swore I was going to die. This guy had broken into the house with a gun, and he was hurt. He was in such pain that his life didn't mean anything anymore. Now I start hammering the door, and as I'm hammering, I hear pop, 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 pop. He's exchanging gunfire with my partner in the back. And you know how things happen for a reason? There's no chance meetings. There's nothing happens by chance. I was about a second and a half away from popping open that door. He had the gun pointed directly at the door. And I was going to be the first one in. I was breaching the door. That was it.
You're a miracle, man. Dude, you should not be here right now.
No, there's plenty of other reasons why I shouldn't be here. I did many other things as a youth. But that was one of those incidents where if I would have gone in that door and the plan would have worked exactly the way I thought it would in my head, and then that the parable of life, if you have a plan laid out for yourself as a kid or even a young adult, and if you look back and you say, my plan would have worked out, it would have been a disaster. Right. And that was one of those disaster situations. So I retreat. Other cars are showing up. They're watching the front. I go around back to check on my partner. I can see the victim, and she's got this that terrified look on her face. She's sitting there with her knees up to her chest. We're not quiet on that deck, and she's not looking anywhere near that rear sliding glass door. I cannot see the suspect. I can't see him. I don't know where he is. And our plan was throw a chair through the sliding glass door, enter in, go get the victim. Our job is to preserve life, and her life was in danger. The minute we throw that chair through the door, PA, listen, I've heard stories when people die that they see this big flash of light. That's what I saw. I saw this huge flash of light. I feel heat. I feel wind. I feel, if you've ever shot a gun, you feel blowback from the gunpowder. It's pepper in my face. What had happened was, as soon as we breached that door, this guy was standing right behind a pillar, pulls his gun around, fires around. He kind of knew I was there, but I think he was just shooting blindly. The bullet comes past my left ear, and it wiggled my left ear. Wow. The other two officers, they were able to retreat. I hit the ground. I have no idea whether I'm shot. I have no clue in the world, because you always hear it. If you're shot, you're not gonna realize it. Your adrenaline's pumping. The other two officers stood by, and I can hear them shouting to me, "Are you shot? Are you shot?" And I said, "I don't know. I see a lot of blood." Turns out I wasn't shot. Just to give a spoiler to the story, I wasn't shot, but I had landed on all that broken glass on the ground on my forearms. It's July, we're in short sleeves, and it really tore my arms up. And the world just slows down. You wonder if you're in those high stress situations, if you're going to panic. Everything just was quiet. I couldn't hear anything. You're physiologically, your body just prepares for it. It protects itself. So this gentleman has shot at police officers twice. There's no reason why he wouldn't do it a third time. And if you're willing to shoot twice, you're willing to die. And this is an ongoing gun battle. I can't get out. I'm trapped. I'm trapped all the way. The furthest spot you can get from the stairs, that's where I am. If I go through, if I start crawling, he has an open shot. And I'll be darned if I'm going to get shot in the side. It's going to be here. Mm-hmm. So at least I have a bulletproof vest. I start making myself right with the world. I start thinking about my children. I have a 3-year-old and I have an 8-month-old at home. My wife is going to be left there to take care of them alone. So then I say my goodbyes and I prepare for death. I get in a shooting position and I'm just waiting for the guy to stick his head out because, once I see it, it's game over. what the other officers did, one guy held cover while another officer, now I'm not the most nimble person in the world, so I need some assistance. I'm all flat on my stomach. He grabs the back of my police belt and sort of assists me, knowing that at least I have some cover from the other officer, and I'm able to get off. And it's great time. We did a great job. We see the victim just sort of stand up against the wall and sleek out the garage door, and she's safe. Game over. Yeah. Listen, he could stay in there for 10 years. Right. Doesn't matter. Right. The state police teams unit comes in and relieves us after about 2 hours of holding down the fort. And I'm ordered. I don't want to go because there's still a barricaded suspect. I want to stay there. I want to see this to the end, but I got ordered to go to the hospital because I'm bleeding pretty bad. So the first thing I can think of, this is like 12:30, 1 o'clock at night, is I have to call my wife because all the wives, they'll talk and I don't want her hearing this from somebody else. I call her and I only have a brief moment. I say, Tricia, it's me. I was in a shooting. I'm okay. I'm not shot. I have to go to the hospital. I have to get glass removed from my eye. I'll call you as soon as I can. I do not have my cell phone. Click. So I go to the hospital and I get this glass removed from my eye. I come back to the scene. They finally talked him out and he got arrested. I get my cell phone, I get my car, I go home, and it's about 5:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm so amped up. I got so much adrenaline running through me. There is no way in the world I'm going to be able to sleep. I go out for a run, I walk my dog, and I try to close my eyes. My kids are getting up. I hug my kids. I give my wife this big hug, and just grateful to be alive. Yeah. We go see a movie called This Is the End, which, there's another sign in that because it's about people going to heaven. And
wow, that's crazy.
It's called This Is the End. And it was a Seth Rogen comedy. I'm figuring it's safe, it's fun. Well, there's a scene in there where the people who are the good people get sucked up to heaven and there's big bang and flashes of light, and the people who are in hell are left on earth.
Right.
That bang sent me into the worst panic attack I ever had. I couldn't breathe.
In the theater?
In the theater.
Wow.
Couldn't breathe. I start sweating. My heart's pounding. I don't want to tell my wife. She just went through enough. I know what she just went through. So I get up. I say, my stomach's not feeling well. I'm going to go to the restroom. And I get up and I walk out. I'm in the hallway of the theater and I can't breathe. I can't move. I try to open the door and the door feels like it's made out of lead. I just can't move it. So I'm out there for about 15 minutes. Finally, my wife comes out and she goes, "You okay?" And I said, "Yeah, my stomach's really hurting. I must eat so bad." She knew. Like she's a smart woman. She knew that I was not okay. And she goes, "You know what? This movie stinks anyway. Let's go."
Yeah.
We beat it out of there. That night, the nightmares start. Night terrors, night sweats. You go to sleep, and I know this is a little graphic, but you'll go to sleep and you'll have such night terrors and night sweats that you have to check to see if you wet the bed. Right. That's how wet you are when you wake up. And it was like that every night. I didn't want to go to sleep. And then you start getting into coping mechanisms. You're drinking and you have this hair trigger. Like my wife took more damage from this incident that she had nothing to do with. She didn't sign up for this job. She wasn't there. She didn't put the gun in the guy's head, but she's the direction of where I'm looking at.
So Ken, what I'm so surprised at, man, it seems like rather than it getting easier with time, it feels like, man, the volume is getting turned up. It's becoming increasingly like more dark and spiraling down, man.
My life is unraveling. My life is spiraling out of control. Because when what it is now, and I identify it now, it's the start of post-traumatic stress. All right, so post-traumatic stress, the easiest way for me to explain it to anybody is, you're walking down the street and you see somebody who may have did you wrong or maybe a bad business deal, and you're like, boy, I'd like to spit on them. But there's that part of your brain that says, hey, that's not a good idea. Right. When you're going through something and you're so fresh in it like this, it's thought action. There is no buffer. Wow. So because of this, my wife got called every name in the book. She got stuff thrown at her. This is a woman who has had every right to leave me and just let me to my own devices. But for some reason, I call it divine intervention, call it whatever it is, she stayed. Wow. And I remind myself of that, even when I'm just super aggravated at her, as husbands can get it.
We call it intense fellowship.
Intense fellowship. I like that. Maybe it'll work with her. But she stuck around, and she watched me she was helpless. She was a helpless witness to what post-traumatic stress can do to a person. My drinking had gotten so far out of control. I was seeing therapists, but I really wasn't doing anything. There came a time when I was told that you're pretty bad. You can't be a police officer anymore. So that identity that I put into that job that I thought was my true calling in life, and this is the place where I was supposed to be, ended just like that. Wow. One night I put my uniform on and I never put it on again. So now I'm truly lost. At this time I was going to group therapy, and I was around other officers who were involved in shootings. Because when you're going through something like this, you think you are totally alone.
Right.
You're not sleeping, so your thoughts are very irrational. You start having those ideations. The whole world's better off without me. I'm doing more damage than good to my family. Maybe if I remove myself from the equation, they'll be better off. It's one of the biggest lies we ever tell ourselves, but it seems like reality at the time. One night, I removed myself from the bedroom. I'm sleeping downstairs because I had to let my wife get some sleep. One of us had to have some sleep in the house. And I think it comes to this stuff where, you know what? I'm going to do it. Write the note, put all the bank passwords down. I have a whole plan.
Man, you wrote the note.
Wrote the note. It's still somewhere in my house. I kind of put it away. One day I'll find it. And basically apologizing for being such a failure. Because that's what I felt like. I felt like a failure. I still had my off-duty gun at this time. And I go into my office, which is just a converted bedroom downstairs. I grab the gun, and I'm ready to go. I have a wall of memorabilia, like pictures of my grandfather, my diplomas and stuff, and I'm looking straight at the wall. The walls are painted blue, and I take this nickel-plated .38 Smith & Wesson cheap special, and I put it in my mouth. I can feel that metal on my teeth. I can feel the ridges on the trigger. I can feel the ridges on the hammer. It's a single action five shot gun. Once you cock that hammer back, it's a really light trigger pull. And I cocked it back. I put the gun in my mouth, and I'm like, all right, let's go. And I'm crying, like I'm just, the tears are running down my face. I'm on my knees, and I'm just looking for a reason. Please give me a reason. Please, God, give me a reason. And I think it was the first time in years that I mentioned the word God in any sentence. I didn't see it at the time, though. I didn't see what I was doing. And I replayed a whole incident. And the gun was probably in my mouth for 20 minutes.
Man, that is dark, bro.
Yeah, it got bad. But there was a point after that. And I don't know why it happened. I pulled the gun out of my mouth, and I hold the gun in my hand. Now, that gun is 1 pound, 9 ounces. That gun felt like I was curling a 50-pound dumbbell. It was so heavy, and I remember just looking at it, and there was just this pause, this clarity, and you start thinking, oh my God, what did I just do? Because you think you're removing yourself from the situation. My kids are upstairs. My wife is upstairs. They're going to hear this stuff. There's a chance my kids are going to find their father with half their head missing.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's easy to look back and rationalize such an irrational behavior. I need help. I need some real help. I didn't communicate with a whole lot of people at that time. People would call me to check on me, but I wasn't picking up the phone. I didn't really know what to say. But there was one person I did reach out to. I said, hey, listen, I can't have my gun in my house anymore. And he goes, put it in a lockbox, I'll take it. And that's what I did. But there's many different ways to skin a cat. That wasn't the last time that happened. I tried to hang myself. I tried to overdose on pills. I tried to drink myself to death. And every single time I failed. And not only are you now a failure at life, you can't even take your own life. You're a failure at that as well. Wow. So you start spiraling, going down. I never really opened up to my therapist because there's trust issues with police. He sort of knew, like he knew more than he let on, but I never really opened up to that. I move along in this group therapy, and I go and I get further along and further along. I go to rehab to get off my alcohol problem, and that sort of sobered me up. So at least I got that taken care of. And then I just started checking the boxes one by one. Okay, clean of alcohol. Now I got to start repairing myself so I can become a better husband and a better father. And while I was in group therapy, as I started becoming one of the older guys in group therapy, the guys who have been there the longest, I started reaching out to everybody else. And I would help them through the pension system. I would try to tell them, hey, listen, this is what I did. You know, watch out for these signs. And if you get there, this is my number. If you call me, I'll be there at 2:00 in the morning. I don't care. Don't want to be in this place. And I noticed something. I started feeling better. Every time I reached somebody, I felt a little bit better. And that healing process began. And what I did is just started my climb back up.
Yeah. Like just for a second, I just want to highlight, I think that's so huge, because especially men, 99% of people won't walk through like you have, but men tend to isolate, and do this. And just healing, like hearing the healing that started to take place as you got into community, I think that is so powerful for today, because, so many people are isolating, and just drawing out of relationships. I think that's really huge. So that was part of it. And then I love too the opposite. Like sometimes we think, hey, me, and yet you're getting outside of yourself, serving other people. And then once again, the healing is taking place. So.
But I noticed I felt so much better. And listen, you always have the noise coming in from the background. Other officers who aren't in your situation say, oh, he's faking it. He's full of it. They don't know what they're just trying to milk the pension system. And then when you finally do retire, and I was fortunate enough to get my pension on what's called an accidental disability. They'll tell you this, oh, you hit the lottery. Bro, you want to come live my lottery?
Right.
Come live my lottery lifestyle, where I got a jacked up household. I tried to kill myself many times. It's no lottery. And I'd give it all back tomorrow to be a police officer again. Yeah. But I can't do that no more.
Right.
So that life of service that I left, I have to fill that void somehow. And I get involved in group therapy, and it really does help. But then the dreaded lockdown, COVID hits, and group therapy ends. And now I'm left to my own devices again, but I have some extra tools. I know that allowing myself to open up is a path to healing, to helping another person, to lighting that torch on the person that's a little further down the ladder so they can walk up and be able to see. Because when you're in the middle of it, it is so dark. You're in that darkness. You feel like you're all alone. But here's the great part. There's people standing right next to you. They got night vision on and they can see everything. And it's not until you start getting towards the end where a little bit of light's coming in, you're looking like, where'd you guys come from? Yeah. And that was my thing. And I wanted to be, now that I was walking towards that light, I wanted to have these people next to me. So what I did is when therapy's done, I want to get it out. I start this podcast. I'm not trying to give a shameless plug here. So the Suffering podcast, right? Who is, and I didn't do this on purpose, who is the King Sufferer? Yeah. Who would suffer for everybody's sins? Yeah. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Like I'm still waiting. I've reached out to Jesus to be on my show. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. I'm waiting patiently because to hear that journey. Yeah. So we have you on, and it's like listening to C.S. Lewis for an hour and a half. It was the most wonderful thing. And I recently went back and redid it. And to this day, I still think, and I'm not saying this because you're in front of me, but that is one of the most impactful shows that I've ever done personally. So down the road, I always try to support people who are willing to come in and speak to me. I come to your church. It's right down the street from my house. And I'm sitting here and we're in masks at the time. And I bring my boys. Now, my boys are my out. I'm like, I'd love to stay.
That's wisdom.
I'd love to stay, but, this one, he's got to go to the bathroom or something, whatever. They were my excuse to get out. And Kim gets up there and sings worship. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. I can't, I'm trying to hold in the tears. I don't want to seem weak in front of my boys. I'm trying to, my lips quivering under, thank God there was a mask, my lips quivering. And I'm like, what is this? This is odd. I get out of there and I'm very quiet when I get home because I'm reflecting on, I don't understand what just happened. And the words you were saying, there were certain things that you said where I started writing notes on the things that you were saying. And I start rereading the Bible, but I read a page a day because I read the Bible many times, but I never read it like this.
Right.
I read a page a day and stuff started changing in my world. I come back the next week to try to replicate, to see, okay, maybe it was a fluke. Sure enough, same thing happened. And I think I've been here, I've only missed a couple Sundays in the past 3 years because I was touched by something. But so here's what this church experience has made me figure out. This church experience has made me figure out that pause, when I took that gun out of my mouth, that just brief moment of clarity was my Lord, Jesus Christ, telling me, hey, buddy, you're not done yet.
Yeah.
You got a little bit more left in the tank. Wow. With me so much because I'm a big King David guy. You know, like I said in the beginning, like I love King David. And I never knew why I was drawn to his story so much until I started rereading the Bible. And I'm thinking, wow, if there's hope for this guy to be so great, there's some hope for me. Yeah. And bringing me back to my faith has been the one thing that makes me move forward. Because if there's a guy like David who is so broken, who is such a bad person, who does these awful things, sending Uriah out to the front lines, lusting on Bathsheba, his son Absalom revolts against him and he kills him. If this guy can be favored by God, there's a chance for me. There's a chance. Yeah. And I love that about that.
Yeah. And Katie, I got to see it front row as I'm watching, little by little, as I'm watching you from up front, man. And just, it was almost tangible. I could see the Holy Spirit each and every Sunday, like the pieces were falling into place more and more. And just seeing, in this the most tough way possible, seeing your heart soften, despite the fact you're still like a manly man and that. And so it was just such a powerful change for me. And then, seeing even it started to trickle down into your family and stuff like that.
Well, there's a real interesting story how that happened. So I would walk out of the house on Sunday morning. I would ask my whole family, "Hey, you want to come to church?" And now I was that person who was forced to go to church. So I decided to break that generational curse and never force anybody to come to church and not be that CEO Christian like you talk about, that Christmas and Easter only. Yeah. So one day my son Patrick comes to me and says, "Hey, Dad, you going to church on Sunday?" Of course I'm going to church. He goes, "You mind if I come with you?" But sure. So he came to church and he would just keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back. I don't know whether it was my example or whether I just drew him in or they saw a change in me and they wanted to know why Dad was changing a little bit. Yeah. But he just became this soldier for the church right along my side. And there's nothing more proud for a father to be than see their child grow. Yeah. Spiritually, not so much physically. So him and I, that was our thing. Sunday morning, that little bonding. We talk on the way here, talk on the way home, go out to breakfast afterwards. My youngest one all of a sudden says the same thing. He said, "Hey, you going to church?" Same thing. Yeah. And I said, "Of course." "Well, can I come with you and Patrick?" "Absolutely." That's awesome. And, I like the fact that everybody in this church, because this church is a real community. Yeah. Hey, Patrick, wow, you're getting big. Hey, Jimmy, that's great. You're doing this stuff. And we share, and it's what a church is supposed to be. You read about churches in the 1700s, 1800s, and they were community-based. Everybody knew everybody, and, everybody looked up to the pastor, and everything was done through the church. Well, we sort of gotten away from that in modern era. Yeah. Like I became very close with Jimmy Flanagan, who just passed. And he taught me how to serve from behind the scenes, to facilitate everybody else's worship time. Yeah. And that's what gives me the most pleasure inside churches, to serve. It's my way of giving back. It's no different than what I did in group.
Kevin, you're so faithful too, man. It was so funny watching God's journey with you. And as you changed and you dove in full force and now have become one of our major leaders here, serving each and every Sunday. And that idea too that you're talking about, that you experienced, that kind of relational church. I know we like to use the word, like we want to be a spiritual family. And I know it sounds weird, but it lives really good. Right? When you experience it, you're like, wow, this is different. People genuinely care for one another.
I was grateful and thankful to be included in the water baptism.
Yeah. We got to talk about this. This is the highlight for me. So
the water baptism, it's the strangest experience. And I've been through a lot of strange things. This was very strange. I felt this love for Jesus, and I felt this love for God. I could feel that. And I was invited to have a water baptism. And there it is. And you're getting dunked in this just bathtub. Thankfully, Jimmy was kind and heated up the water a little bit. And I remember, I think Dom was one of the people that stood by, and then there was Bryce who stood by, and there's people all in the atrium of our church here. I could hear the noise because it's echoey. It's very echoey around there. The acoustics are what they are. And I get in there and I'm nervous, and I say something, and somebody had taped it, and I'm saying something, and I don't even remember what the heck I said. I get in the water, and the noise is going, and I'm nervous. I've been in front of camera plenty of times, and I'm never nervous. I'm nervous here. You dunk me in the water, and I come up, and it's complete silence. And I know people were clapping and people were cheering. It was the volume got turned down in my life.
Amazing.
And that unraveling and that spiraling arrested and ceased. And from that point on, my connection to the church will forever be there, and I don't think it'll ever be broken.
Right.
Because now I feel like I was accepted as in the family.
Yeah, man. I see it like tangibly on your life, or like you say, there's just all this noise, and then in your words, like turn the volume down. And I see, like the scripture talks about a peace that passes understanding. I see that peace and that rest falling on your life. Man, we're all looking for a little bit of peace, and man, to see what the Lord has done in your life has just been really powerful. And the great thing is, man, your story's still being written. And so, like, I started this out by saying, like, yours is a redemption story, man. God causes all things to work for good. And now I'm watching all these things. This nightmare that happened, it has turned into something that's helping people. And then we got to talk about this.
Well, you changed the perspective. Before you get into that, you changed the perspective. That guy who shot at me, his name was Anthony Vocatore, and I say his name very loud.
Yeah.
If you would have talked to me a year, 2 years, 3 years after the shooting, I hated the man.
Yeah.
Like, I had so much hate in my heart for the man because I thought he ruined my life. No, that guy saved my life, because I started looking at it through different eyes. What did that guy have to go through in order to shoot at police officers multiple times? Think about the pain in his heart. Yeah, he almost killed me, but he saved me in the process.
It's amazing perspective, bro. That's mind-blowing. That's a sign of your, like, a new heart, because that's otherworldly, man, because in and of ourselves, we can't do that stuff.
So if I saw him today, he came walking through that door right there, I would say, it's all good, brother. It's all good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You could be a little firm on the handshake with him. It's okay, bro.
But it's all roads. Ever since I've accepted Jesus Christ into my life, I'm going to tell you from personal experience, my life has gotten better at every single turn. My relationship with my wife has gotten better. My relationship with my kids has gotten better. My relationship with my church has gotten better. I appreciate things more down the line. So you can say that this is a bunch of, mysticism, but I'm telling you what, there is a lot to this.
Yeah.
I get people, even to this day, they know I'm a member of church and they know I'm active in this church, and they'll call it a cult. Okay, call it a cult. And these are people who don't believe.
Yeah.
I heard this guy named Pete Holmes say something. He says, there's always this big battle between people who don't believe anything and believe that God created the world and Jesus is a savior, and they always believe all that stuff. And he goes, so, you might be right. There might not be anybody there. So you're betting on you can't see, touch, taste, smell, or photograph this thing that created you. Or you believe in Jesus Christ and God, where you can't see, touch, taste, smell, or photograph this thing. Okay. But you're saying you were created out of nothing. Well, you're going to tell me something magical just was created out of nothing. And then when you ask him this, well, what happens when you die? Nothing.
Yeah. Right.
So you merge with your creator?
Yeah. Right.
Well, that's called heaven.
Right.
That's called heaven.
Right. Right.
And all these roads have led me to write this book.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, man. You now, like everything you walk through, remember, everything turns for good. And now I'm sitting across from an author. Your book is banging. And so I know you wouldn't like self-promote, but I'm going to promote, man. And so you got, man, you're crazy. And I know it's like just selling out on Amazon. And so did you ever think, I mean, bro, you're now a published author. Like, man, how good is God?
It's difficult at times. My wife can't even read this book.
Yeah.
That's how close it touches her.
Yeah.
But what I'm hoping is somebody reads this book and realize there's hope. There's hope.
Amen.
And isn't that what the church is supposed to do, is give you hope?
Yeah. Fantastic, man. Well, Kev, this has been an amazing conversation, dude. And here's what I love, man. Your story is a redemption story. I love that it's still being written, man. So I just totally believe that the best is yet to come. So thanks for sharing your life with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything. Just the things that you've done for my life, the things that the church has done for life, the things Jesus Christ has done for my life. I will forever be indebted. I will always be that soldier fighting for those people who made me into